Hello and welcome to Upstage Downstage.
With me, Richard Platt, seated in the upper circle.
And me, Stephen Rees, seated in a cheap seat. This is the Theatre Podcast, where we discuss productions we've seen, things we've liked and may not have liked, giving our complete unprofessional and non-biased opinions.
So grab a brew, take a seat and let's raise that curtain. On today's episode, we'll be discussing Accidental Death of an Anarchist. We saw this production at Sheffield Playhouse Theatre on the 29th of September 2022. Accidental Death of an Anarchist is a play by Italian playwright Dario Fo that premiered in 1970. This production is adapted by Tom Basden. Considered a classic of 20th century theatre, it has been performed across the world in more than 40 countries. The play is based on the 1969 Piazza Fontana bombing. So Stephen, what's it all about?
An irrepressible, shape-shifting fraudster known only as the Maniac is brought into police headquarters just as the officers inside prepare for a judicial review of the accidental death of a suspect while held in custody weeks earlier. Unable to resist the opportunity to hold court, the Maniac dupes the police into performing a farcical recreation of the incident, exposing the absurd corruption and terrifying idiocy at the heart of the system.
But first, our post-show opinion!
Amazing, crazy.
Fast-paced comedy genius. So with all that said, let's
Set the scene! So we find ourselves, Richard, at Sheffield Playhouse.
Yes.
Which is part of the Crucible, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's underneath the Crucible.
Yes.
Or at the side. It's in the same building.
Yeah. And this is my first time of going there. And was it yours as well?
It was my first time, yeah. And
it's like an intimate space, a very small space at that, not a full theatre, but just, I suppose, to trial new plays or new productions.
Definitely.
Or,
and it makes sense because it's almost a cube in the way it's designed, because you literally got audience in an L shape, so you've got people down both sides of the staging area, shall we say. So I think it's more of it probably becomes a semicircle. It's almost thrust in the way it's designed. It's just that your audience are both sides of the staging of it, which I found quite.
Although it never saw the other side of it, so whether it's got seats on the other side as well.
Yeah, it's very hard to understand the way they're very screened off very well, so you don't.
Yeah, I mean, it could be in the round.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah,
just
not quite
never
sure.
Really, couldn't really tell.
Yeah, it would have been ideal for Brief Encounter if it was.
Totally.
But anyway, I digress. So, well, let's just start at the beginning and set the scene.
Very good place to start.
Exactly. So, Richard, would you like to describe the set for Accidental Death of an Anarchist?
Yeah, so when you walk into the Playhouse, they didn't really hide anything of this production. You're basically in a police building, one of their office blocks, one of their interview rooms. It's quite a spacious interview room, and probably on a high-end top, like third or fourth floor of the building, so you could equally see out of the window. You could see another tower block out of the window. So you were just presented with simply two doors, fluorescent light tubes above on the staging. It was done very almost like, I'd say.
Well, you said a cube earlier, and that's exactly what it was.
It's a cube with the walls that have been taken away. Really,
yeah, two walls.
Two walls.
So you saw the
away.
Ceiling.
Yeah,
it was very detailed.
Yeah,
in terms of everything they put in a typical office, which you would find, as well as the carpet.
Yeah, totally. And
like the two-tone squares.
Yeah, it was proper tiled carpet, and like replaceable if they needed to. And there was at the back just a little like almost office at the back that you could go into using a door, and there was just a filing cabinet, a window, and you could see other windows, and then just chairs and a couple of table really, and a bench. So it's very simply put together, but it felt real, and it felt like it was that police interview room and everything.
Yeah, I mean, viewing it, you would actually think it was an office.
Yeah.
That had just been ripped out of a building and put on the stage.
Yeah, it felt like they just borrowed one from somewhere and just plonked it in.
And it helped, I think, by having, because it was on it helped having the LED lights around the outside
Yeah.
to make it look like a cube.
Yeah, and to give the effect
well,
of that's
being thrust
the edge
out
of
into
the
the-
stage as well.
Yes.
It was like it bordered the whole piece, so it looked like the framing of it.
And that's basically what we're sort of looking at. We're like a voyeuristic, looking at like a peep show of
Like Big Brother, like watching just a room that was just with people
on the
in it.
wall.
And everything was almost like a pale blue wall. There was nothing on the walls. Everything was, there was a whiteboard and a few other bits like your normal notices in those rooms. So you'd got your fire notice to say where your fire exits were, and just to show there was even an air conditioning unit on the ceiling, on the wall, and stuff like that to show that.
Yeah, all that details, but also on one of the doors they had a window just above it.
Yeah.
But it was set back.
Yeah.
With files just on top of that.
Yeah.
They didn't have to go to that much detail.
And to be honest, they
But
never
they did.
used them. They
No.
never used these things, but they were there for the.
Because they didn't need to put windows there.
No, they didn't need to. But it showed you that it's like the fluorescent lights. They didn't just put fluorescent lights on the ceiling.
They didn't just put one.
No, and they hung them from above.
Yeah.
So they were on cable tracks, and they brought the stage down to the space that the performances were happening. But it didn't feel out of place. It all felt part of it.
I thought this was a really good set, to be
I
honest.
did, yeah. And all we saw at the start when we walked in was the words "accidental death of an anarchist" projected across
onto
those walls,
the curtains.
onto the actual walls in the building itself, on the.
Oh, that's when they opened the curtains.
When we walked in, they were all
Yeah.
projected, and then when they shut the curtains in the interval, they projected the same on
That's
on
right.
the actual curtains.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the production itself. You've never seen this or heard of this play before, have you?
No, it was my first hearing and seeing of this production, really. So I'd never seen this or
What
heard
did
it.
you make of it? Because I saw it performed at university, and
I
got the script book myself, so I knew it was.
I
one
think
to
helping
watch.
that I'd never seen it and I'd got no preconceived idea of it, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I thought it was really well done. And to be fair, this was a punt. We hadn't really planned to go and see it until it was we booked it on the day we were going to see it, and it was on the very last minute.
Yeah, for some reason I thought we weren't available to see it.
Yeah.
Because I knew it was on the cards, but for some reason I thought I was working.
And we couldn't get to see it, and because it was Sheffield, we might not be able to get.
Yeah, and then that's right. I saw on Instagram Caroline Quentin had been to see it, and I thought, oh yes, of course it's on. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm free tonight.
Yeah, and then it just happened.
Yeah.
And it actually helped because I think it was a 6:00 performance, and it was an earlier start.
Yes, it was. It wasn't.
Which was quite handy.
Was it a 7-1?
Well, 7:00. It was an early.
Yeah,
it
no
was an early
matinee.
start.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, but
Yeah, but
7.
it was actually good because it was an earlier start, because it meant we got a chance to get home in time.
Yeah.
But no, thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought we'll talk more about cast later, but I do think that a production like this needs the right people involved in the entire production, and I thought they really did it well.
Yeah, and it's a really good farce, and it's been updated as well
Yeah,
for modern times, which it just helps. You wouldn't notice it.
no,
You wouldn't think
nothing
that,
about it
this
felt
is modern, and then
original
that's
or
like,
old or
yeah, you wouldn't. No, I don't know what I mean.
I think we talk about productions aging, and however old this is,
it was like seamless. It's very realistic
you
now.
did not feel.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, it didn't feel like it was an old production
with things added on.
Yeah, it didn't at all. And,
it felt like this was a new
yeah,
piece
it
of
really
writing.
did. Yeah,
in
it
anything.
did. Yeah, if you like me being new to it, you wouldn't have even considered it being of a different time or a different age.
Yes, Tom Busden, who adapted it from Dario Fo, and Frank Arame, did a really good job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Now, let's talk about the direction here.
I mean, I was in awe
Yes.
of the direction of this, because what I will say is any farce or any comedy production has to come from a place that is with total commitment from the director and the cast, because to make it this level, we're talking Noises Off level, we're talking at the level of production and performance.
Well, I suppose it's like classical farce, isn't
is.
it? Really,
it is, but to do classical farce, you have got to take it serious. It's not a matter of it's comedy. We can make it funny. We can enjoy doing it. No, you've got to hit every note, and you've got to hit every part of those jokes or these little tiny little minutes of performance. It's got to happen, otherwise it isn't funny and it isn't exciting and it isn't on edge.
I think the pacing also helps as well, keeping it at one thing after
Yeah.
another, constantly moving, constantly going. And I think the moment anyone drops the ball or it goes a little stale, that's when you sort of step out of the farce.
Positioning,
and it just
timing,
stops.
all the things where a person has to be in that place at that time, otherwise that won't work. And it's little tiny things, and it's not always about what they say, it's about what they do. And I think that's just as important. And this was a masterclass in how to
It really was.
perform it.
I'm struggling to actually, I'm struggling to praise it for specific things because everything about it was just brilliant.
I think it's one of those you've got to see
you know what
it
I mean?
to believe it.
Yeah.
You've got to be in the room to see how good
And I
it
think
was.
it's probably a bit stupid of me to say it was brilliant just for directing and stuff, but it felt so natural and so normal.
Yeah.
That I suppose after viewing a couple of plays that we have
Yeah.
it felt unnatural for it to be perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where I was sort of at with viewing this.
I felt like you'd got your own one chair. You got your own. However, no matter how many people were in the room.
Yeah.
I'd got a chair and I was sat on that carpet in that room watching. I felt like I was in there.
And I think that helped with the main character talking directly to the audience. It like gave that pantomime-esque wink to the audience that they're in on it.
Well, it brought you in.
It had to do that because of through the character as well.
Because he was playing a schizophrenic who
talked to himself,
and this, that, and the other.
Yes.
He could do that, and it was very clever because not once did the others break that wall.
No,
only he broke the fourth wall, and that was why it made it even more inviting as a person watching it, because you were brought in,
and you were on his side,
and you knew he was causing chaos, and he was dipping in and creating things happening, and he just looked at you and just nodded or winked, and even right up to the interval or the time when the curtain shut, and there was still a nod and a wink and a nudge, and it was like, you can laugh at this, you can enjoy this, and it was all the way through. Just it totally engaged,
and it's based off real events as well. For those who don't know, and I think it brings out the stupidity of the police force and all that. And I think that's why it showcases that, because you're following the actual, I can't think of the guy, not the actual actor, but the main character there.
Yeah.
Let's say, in this instance, we'll just say it was Daniel Rigby who played him. And you could accept him being eccentric and doing all these buffoonery things and different characters or whatever, because he sort of welcomed you into his space like that. But you knew there was like a nod and a wink because he was showing up the stupidity of the police.
Yeah.
And we all know that even to this day, how...
I
won't go down that route, but you know what I mean?
I think it's more the fact as well of how somebody who can be so clever can fool a room of people by the way they talk or confuse, or it's how you manipulate a room. And it's very interesting because you see it in Big Brother, you see it in office spaces,
how stupid they are.
And you see it in big corporate meetings, or you hear of these stories where the people at the top trust the people below them that much that they could tell them anything and they believe it. And I think it shows about hierarchies of organisations, and not just the police, but a lot of that world.
And also passing the buck.
Yeah, exactly.
Something's gone wrong. Oh, it wasn't me.
It's somebody else.
It was somebody else.
Yeah, it's easy to blame. Put the blame on somebody else, and that's what this exposes, because on the deep level it looks into that people are gullible, and they will believe things they're told, and if somebody is clever and very specific, they can change that, and I think that's where this writing of this is phenomenal, really.
Is there anything you'd like to say about the writing, Richard?
I feel that this was written by a bit of a genius, really, because I don't know if the adaptation clouds what was originally written, but I can't feel that it does, because there's so much content in this.
The adaptation would be just updating it.
Yeah, exactly.
But the original.
But the concept and the construction, I don't think you could write something like this again and not be, or shall we say, I can't see another writer not taking reference from the way this is written if they write something themselves. I think it's very difficult to match this in style of writing, really, because yes, it's a pure farce, but it's really clever in that there's so many twists and turns and things going off that you could easily watch it again, easily pick things up from the writing. You could easily think, I didn't hear that last time, or I didn't hear that last time, and I can get it, because there's so much in it that's fast paced. There's so much in it that goes off. There's, the cast just purely picking up the script will go, oh my god, we've got to do this, because it's almost like 2 plays in one, because it moves that fast. There's so much content.
Moving on to our next segment now, as we are
Here for the drama.
I just want to give a great big shout out to Daniel Rigby, who I'd seen him in a BBC series in 2007 called Lilies, and he played this wonderful character who'd just been to war and come back.
Yeah.
And I think his storyline would have been that his character was gay, but it only lasted for 1 series.
Yeah.
And it was written by, I can't think of her name now, but she went on to do brilliant things. Anyway, it doesn't matter, not from where I've seen him from, but I knew he was like a competent and really good actor. Oh, I'm awake. I knew he was like a really good, competent actor. But seeing him in this, I appreciate just how much of a versatile actor he is, because he just did more than what I thought. I just thought he was bloody brilliant.
Yeah, I
to
think,
have stage presence and to command the stage as he did.
Yeah.
And just take control and be the leader of that show.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's one thing to play a silly, funny character, but then it's another to play 10 to 15 silly, funny characters within that, when they're playing so many different parts and changing and being almost all the theatrical references you saw in it when he was acting with different voices, different characters, different this, then all of a sudden looking at the audience, acting to the audience, then doing another thing, then changing, just putting a wig on and just changing. Everything he was doing was so well put together that it was just something that he must felt schizophrenic when he was at home trying to learn it, because he
was very energetic.
Just so much commitment to the actual character. And I think that then helps the rest of the cast act, because he's filling the gaps for them, so they don't even have to worry that he's not going to be where he needs to be. He's just there. He's done it, and I think even from the falling off or trying to get off a bench to then writing on walls, or
that reminded me so much of sort of like a sort of a steptoe and son. You talking like Spike Milligan, sort
it was
old fashioned comedy.
Yeah, it was 2 Ronnies. It was all the other things.
It was like that kind of comedy, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was total, like, everything that you saw was all of a sudden, it's like he could click a finger and become somebody different, or he'd see something on a table and he'd just become something different, and it was just like, and then he was sat on the windowsill trying to jump out the window, and all those, there was loads of things happening that you just like, oh my god, you must have been exhausted at the end of this.
I think also what helps is maybe because of when it was written, it has that sort of comedy aspect to it, and that style of comedy. And I think perhaps either they'd been a fan of that era comedy to incorporate it in this world.
Yeah, and I think as well, this also felt like you're almost watching something that had been made as a comedy production on TV, where it was that well put together, you were like fixed. And I think there was, every actor on stage had the right volume, they had the right performance, they didn't play up to they just performed right. It didn't feel like anybody did. There was no bad egg in this performance at all. No,
I think there might have been a little bit of corpsing, but I think that was like when they were trying not to laugh at something. I can't remember now whom that was.
It was very slight. There wasn't anything that you. But then
that you can get away with it in this.
You're watching it live. You know that it's live, so people will react in that way.
Well, what else did you enjoy about this production? Memorable moments.
Yeah, the memorable moment is I'll never look at a big chunky black marker again in the same way, because at the start of this production it starts with blue pale walls that I talked about, and by the end of it, it becomes a crime scene, and everything's been graffitied on, everything's been changed, everything's been
used as a notepad.
One of the things I would say is one of the things that did make me laugh, tiny little attention detail. We started on floor 3 and then we went up to the next floor to do an interview, and simply the black marker pen came out, crossed the number 3 out, written a 4 on the wall, just to show that we'd moved up floors. And the window, the scene out of the window was basically like a roller blind. So all you saw was they roll it down, so it looked like the room was going up. And it was.
And he did that on stage, didn't he?
He did it on stage as part of it, and it
added to the humour.
The humour. It set the scene for the next scene, and then we were back into the mix of the whole production being hilarious. But it was like the whole room was a lift, and it was just really cleverly done. But then everything was done with precision, even though it was like graffiti style. It was smiley faces on places, and
it gradually became absurd.
Yeah,
the more you went along with it, and
was
believed
the chaos
everything.
And the things that started to happen towards the
because
end.
then, like you say, he was writing on the walls, and then he kept doing more of that.
Yeah,
and then they did like this Italian opera for the interval, and then reenacting the crime scene or the interview scene, and believing that, and then to the point where just out of the blue he smashes his head through the wall.
Yeah, exactly. And
you turned to me and said, "What?"
I know, and that was through the health and safety sign on the wall.
Yeah.
That was basically a fake bit of wall that was already there waiting for him to do that. So they must have printed one out for every night to fill that space just to create that moment. And it came out of nowhere, though.
Yeah, nobody was expecting it.
No.
I couldn't remember it ever being in the script. I mean, it probably was.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I read it, but that just, as I say, just came straight out the blue, and it's like, oh, what next?
I mean, because obviously at the end of this, he jumps out the window and kills himself, doesn't he? So, well, does he or doesn't he?
He comes back in.
He does.
Well, they're spoilers.
Yeah, but they're spoilers. But on leaving the production, they did have the project. There was on all the screens where the posters were and everything. They did announce that since 1970, there's been over 3,000 deaths in police custody in England and Wales, and it was almost that it was just trying to point out that these things do happen in real life. Because what actually this is talking about is somebody before this production had actually jumped out of the window and killed themselves. So this was the whole premise, was to, it was just highlighting that there's an issue, and that's just a deep moment. But I think it shows that.
Yeah, I think the issue was in another country, but I think they brought facts and figures
For this country, yeah.
Yeah, but I think it was a bomb thing. I can't remember now, but
Yeah, because he had his bomb in his biscuit tin.
Then bourbon biscuit bombs.
Bourbon biscuit bombs, yeah.
Moving on to our next segment.
What the tack is this?
So, Richard, we've talked about strobe lighting and aspects of the lighting, but is there anything technical you want to bring up about this production?
Yeah, I mean, it was very general colour and very fluorescent lit, as in it was meant to be in an office. So they kept it very bright, very stark, very white. There was not really any specials until after the interval, when they filled the room with smoke and did almost Bohemian Rhapsody scene to open the second half, and that was completely absurd. This is when we knew we were going down to complete absurdities.
Yeah,
there was a club scene where they created the feeling that we were in a club. So and it was a lot of strobing and flashing lights, like you say. But overall, it was all pretty much general cover. There was a few projection used. There wasn't really any sound effects, I don't think, apart from some road noise and a few phones ringing and things like that. It wasn't really anything. There was nothing over the top, and I don't think this needed it, to be fair, because it was too fast-paced to have got anything else in.
Yeah,
it was very much done by what was on stage and who was on stage and what they were doing at the time. So
and I am actually pleased that we got to see it, and I was hoping it would tour for 2023, and it is now, I see. So
yes,
that's good. So whenever this goes out, if you listen to this, make sure you go and see Accidental Death of an Anarchist.
Yeah, totally, and it's worth every penny that you pay.
Absolutely. Now I think we've tidied that little bit of technical info up. There wasn't anything much I could say about that either. Rewind, rewatch, our little new segment where we see a little aspect of the play again, if we'd like. What would you review and rewatch, Richard?
That's a good question. I think for me, it's got to be the build up to the end of the first act.
Okay.
Because that's when the chaos and the absurdity starts getting more and more deep. It's not necessarily the specific moment. I think it's just that last sort of 10-15 minutes where it's all starting to get crazy, and then he just pulls the curtains to and puts his head through the curtains and and sort of says, see you in the second half, and you're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
what have I just watched? And I think that it leaves you wanting more, and I think that was the key thing for me.
Yeah, I agree there, but
the whole thing for me.
yeah, I'm gonna have to say there's not one particular scene I would specifically watch again out of context.
No, I know what you mean.
So I'd have to just watch the whole lot again.
I think it wouldn't.
I think the bit there where he's trying to piece the puzzle together and starts writing on the wall.
Yeah.
I suppose I could say that was a good scene to recapture. But again, out of context, I'd want to watch the whole thing.
Totally.
So I think that's just how good this performance, this production, and this show and story is.
Totally agree.
Call this a show.
Scores on the doors, please, Richard, for Accidental Death of an Anarchist. With 10 being accidentally entertained by an anarchist, and 1 being an accidental death of an audience member. What's it going to be?
Well, I can only give it a 10. Simple, straight down the line, 10.
For me, I think this play holds up extremely well, even as it's been adapted. So it's definitely up there. So a 10 out of 10 for me too. So, what sound effect will you be choosing from the following? A complete train wreck? Tumbleweed? An audible shrug of the shoulders? A slow clap? A pleasant applause? Or a standing ovation? What will it be?
I gave it a standing ovation, and I'd definitely give it a standing ovation again, and I'd love to go and see it more than once.
10 out of 10 standing ovation, and I would definitely see this again. I urge people to go and see this. It's really good. It's a really good play, and really good production at that.
Yeah.
So well done to everyone involved.
You won't be disappointed if you saw this again.
Absolutely.
So there we are. That's our discussion of Accidental Death of an Anarchist. We hope you found it insightful.
If not, entertaining.
Coming up over the next few episodes, we will be discussing The Wicked Lady,
Mousetrap,
and The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel.
That's it for this week, folks.
If you'd like to drop us a message, please email us at upstagedowstagepod@gmail.com. Remember, you can always join in the chat to share with us your views on a production.
Also, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel so you get every episode the second it's released. And we hope you join us again for another instalment of Upstage Downstage.